Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today is Thursday, January 4th, 2024, brand new year. And I found an article this morning that I found quite interesting. It speaks to some of the things that we've talked about. That was my dog George, he decided to leave. Some of the things we've spoken about on the channel before, which is to do with the struggles that commercial real estate is going through. Generally, this is actually to do with the LA and Orange County area. But we have spoken about this before. If you haven't seen that, please go back and watch some of the videos. But to give a little bit of a summary, after the pandemic, we saw a big decrease in the demand for commercial real estate, mainly office space, because of the fact that this shift happened where we saw everyone instantly having to work from home, and therefore the actual model worked, where I think naturally that wouldn't have progressed as quickly, or there would have been a lot of pushback saying, hey, this isn't something that works. You know, we'll trial some stuff. There would have been good things that happened, bad things that happened. But because we were plunged into a situation with the pandemic where people worked from home, they had to, they did a lot of meetings through Zoom calls. Some of these companies now see office space specifically as not that valuable, or not nearly the value that it had before, because it isn't something they necessarily need and is a cost on their books that takes away from their profit, which they can normally cut out. So that is one of the main things. Also, interest rates going up means that a lot of commercial developers are not necessarily that interested in, or sorry, investors are not necessarily that interested in buying commercial buildings, renovating them. So we're seeing kind of a lack of that going on. We've also seen the economic headwinds that we're potentially going into in 2024, where there are a lot of companies, I've noticed it specifically in the tech space, where they are trying to cut down their costs, namely the employment. So they're actually not renewing contracts with a lot of their employees, saying, look, we're going to let you go. And so I can imagine, and what we're seeing is some of these other costs where they're trying to basically kind of keep their profit margin, make sure that they're not going to go bankrupt in these situations, is office space. If it's not being utilized, it's not being used, the demand has gone down there. So due to that, I've actually predicted in the future that we may well see some of this commercial office space being converted into residential. The demand for residential real estate is constant. Obviously, similarly, we've seen a bit of pushback in the way that the interest rates and the mortgage rates going up has meant that less people have decided to enter the market. However, less people have decided to sell. So what is interesting, I think, is that the market that is going to be least affected is multifamily. So demand for rent is probably even stronger because those people that have jumped in and bought new homes no longer are doing that, which means that there is more demand for people who are looking for rental units. They may be holding off for interest rates to come down. They may not be able to afford the property and get the mortgage that they did previously. So there is a company called Irvine Real Estate. They do a lot of development, I believe, in Orange County, and they were building a Newport Beach development, which is named, was going to be named Academy Point. This was going to be a 532,000 square foot, so enormous life science complex. So it was near UC Irvine. It was going to have catering to medical, healthcare, and biotech tenants, and it was intended to leverage the proximity to UC Irvine and other research centers. So obviously the demand was there. They had potentially a big university there that was going to be in demand, was going to want more space for this medical sector, and that has now changed. They've actually announced that they are going to be shifting that now to a residential development. Now, I think that this falls into a middle ground where obviously this isn't really a conversion. It's not an existing structure that has been built and therefore is now going to be converted into residential real estate, but it is a development that was underway and was really proposed for commercial space, and now has been flipped into multi-unit residential. So I don't know if this is the developers just looking at it and saying, look, our return on investment is going to be a lot stronger now going into residential because the demand is not there for commercial. What I am quite surprised by is that it is biotech, healthcare, and medical. Those are spaces that I would not have thought would have been affected. It's not as much office space, and it was an office building, so maybe that is, maybe a lot of that development was office space. But if it was places where you're doing research, you're actually doing experiments, that really cannot be done from home, and that has to be done in the location due to healthcare law, due to actually doing the experiments in a controlled environment. And this is all me, from not in the medical background. My mum's actually a doctor, but I'm not in the medical background, especially not research. But this is kind of what I expect. So I'm quite surprised that that has happened. It may also be just looking at investment going into things, looking at the economic outlook in 2024, that these research companies aren't necessarily looking into doing new projects or taking on new office space, new research space. But they've said that they are now going to pivot that, and they're going to turn it into a 1,200 unit apartment complex. And so that is going to be multifamily. They're going to have all of these units that are now going to be rented. And it's, as I said, an interesting shift. It seems like Irvine Company is more of a commercial developer. But obviously, we know, as I've just said, there is a constant demand for rental properties, and there is more and more demand that seems to be happening. It's an 185-acre property, and it's located near workforce hubs and obviously the university. So the preliminary plans that they have suggested are low-rise multifamily complexes. It's going to be all electric homes with solar panels. Now, I think that's fantastic. One thing I'm always shocked by in Southern California is we have so much sun. In fact, today there's not much sun. It's incredibly windy. But normally, you have so much sun in this Los Angeles, Orange County area. And the fact that we do not utilize solar energy to the point that we should do, we're still relying on fossil fuels, on power lines that are actually above ground. Again, something that really blows my mind. We're in an earthquake zone, and the idea that you're having power lines that are above ground that could be affected by an earthquake fall and start fires is crazy to me. I don't know if you guys agree, but please let me know. In London, where I'm from, power lines are buried under the ground. You have phone lines above ground, which you can kind of understand, but power lines are put underground. And this is a place where I think it's more difficult to do that. It's a 2,000-year-old city where you're really having to dig up, pavement and areas to put these power lines underneath. However, that is almost seen as the greater good, and so it's passed. Some politics in the US I'm always shocked by. Again, this is my personal opinion, but it seems like with lobbying, with situations like that, people keep things that do not make sense in place for longer and longer. Now, having this development being all solar powered is fantastic. You're basically having minimal footprint in an area where you're putting this development. You're not having to pull power from the grid, etc. So I think it's a really good idea. Another thing actually I'll say about solar very quickly, because it's not really the topic that we're discussing today, is a law in Southern California is that you can have solar panels on your roof. However, you need to sell that energy back to the grid and then buy it back from the grid. Again, makes no sense to me. For safety, you're basically overloading the power lines, you're overloading the grid, increasing the chance of fire. But if someone is generating energy in one location, they should be able to draw from that energy and use it. Now, I think the one caveat or change to that, which is possible, is with Tesla's roofs, you can have the power banks or the power walls and therefore store the energy on site and use it as you want. This is not a shout out for Tesla. I am thinking about doing that in my own house just because of the fact that I think this is absolutely ridiculous. But the fact that actually they're going to keep that energy there, they're going to power, I presume, going to power the entire development from that, I think is great. And hopefully more and more developments go that way. Um, so it's apparently going to have to persuade the city to rezone the area from a medical research point, medical research location. I think that that hopefully will go through. Again, I'll try and track this story, and it's expected to break ground in early 2025, and the homes to be completed in 2027. That's very fast, a 2-year turnaround. And apparently there is also an initiative within Orange County which is to build 23,600 new homes by 2029. I think that that's also a good move because we're seeing the demand is outstripping supply in the housing market, and you need to be able to provide houses for these people. We've got a huge homeless situation, and just providing that supply is going to mean that hopefully there's more affordable units, especially if it's an affordable housing complex. And apparently this is going to be 4,500 homes. So that's a big chunk of that. That's almost a fifth of that, or it's over a fifth of that proposed or needed plan by 2029. We're 5 years out from that now, and it's supposed that, and it's saying that these homes will be done by 2027. Whether that is the case, we'll wait to see. But I think that this is really interesting. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on this. I'm quite interested, and I'm quite stunned, or not stunned, but baffled why this is not just commercial office space, because I can definitely see that move, and why it's more research space. I think it's a great location. It probably has the draw from UC Irvine of students that would take that, but obviously it also had the interest and the demand for medical research. But anyway, guys, that's my topic for the day. I'm going to be back tomorrow with another topic and another discussion. I really appreciate you guys spending your time here and looking through this with me. I will be back tomorrow, as I said. Please, could you share this, leave a like, a comment. I'm going to say that every single video, which I find annoying when I watch other people's videos, but it seems to be necessary to grow the channel. Thank you guys so much. I will speak to you all tomorrow, and have a great day. Goodbye.